Hello and welcome back to Meerkat Chris. Today we're going to do a throwback review of something of Uncharted territory. Let's find out what it will be today. So, Uncharted 2. Well, Uncharted 2 is part of the PS4 Uncharted the Nathan Drake collection. You know, the remasters from about 2 years ago, I think it was 2015, released by Naughty Dog. Got that in there. And starring Nathan Drake as our video game protagonist. And you know what these games are. They're like action-adventure puzzle-solving games. And you would probably think that this is kind of my sort of thing. Especially if you know anything about me. But the truth is, I never actually got round to this game ever before this PS4 remaster. And this was down to the fact that I didn't have a PS3 when it was released. So anyway, getting started in the game, of course I went straight to that crushing difficulty. It's not even that hard, it's quite an easy difficulty in my opinion. Barely died at all, so just saying. All I ever heard about this game was about the opening train sequence. I was always like, oh, this game looks so cool, why can't I play it on my 360? And it is impressive, I've got to say. It's technically impressive. Very technically impressive. Yeah, it was alright. Straight after you complete this little bit of the train intro, cut to the first cinematic of the game. And here, we as Nathan Drake are introduced to Chloe and this guy. I can't remember his name. He's like one of Nathan Drake's old mates or something. I don't know. And yeah, it does a good job of setting up the relationship and chemistry between the three characters. You kind of get a bit of the premise of the plot as well throughout this little scene, and they kind of discuss how they have to go after this thing. I can't remember what the McGovern. And then straight after this we're introduced to the first main mission of the game, and of course this is all set 2 weeks prior after the train sequence. And I've got to admit, as much as I love stealth sections in games, this is an entire mission pretty much based around stealth. And it's kind of clunky. I'm not saying it's not good, I just personally didn't think they did a great job of informing you of all the game mechanics in terms of stealth. Because there was a lot of times when I was like hanging on a ledge, like, oh, looking over at an enemy literally standing right there, and I was like, okay, now what do I do? I guess I click square? And then he just does a weird maneuver, and the guard's alerted, and then all of a sudden game over, because it has one of those annoying, oh yeah, you have to restart the mission if you do a little bit of a mess up. And that happened a lot to me. The game literally doesn't tell you, at least not on crushing difficulty. It tells you like the basis of like, oh yeah, click square to like, you know, knock out guards from behind. But when you're hanging on a ledge or behind a wall, the mechanics are slightly different. I think you have to use the left analog stick a bit, and it's something you have to figure out for yourself basically. I did, however, figure it out in the end. And still the stealth is a bit clunky. Like the amount of times just guards were randomly alerted to my whereabouts was really annoying. Again, I'm talking from crushing difficulty basis because, you know, I'm a hardcore gamer. Following on from this, I still found the game a bit too slow for me personally to get into. I don't know if it's just the aging of the game or something. It wasn't until a mission or two later, I think it was the next mission, where you're introduced again to Sully. Sully from the first game, as you will know if you played the first one. And again, you have nice chemistry with him. This is the thing, it has some strong writing in this game. Like, they have believable, for the most part, conversations with each other. And you get a nice history and background between the characters, and they feel fleshed out and such. And in particular, Sully. I think he is actually the most charismatic character in the game. He's just one of those natural guys who, just the way he talks and he acts and carries himself about and looks and has a cigar all the time, you know, you want to get to know that guy. It was this mission here that I'm showing you, the one set in the forest, where things started to pick up for me. Although in the beginning it was still a bit like, hit and miss for me, especially since I was trying to go about doing it stealthily, again, because that's one of my favourite aspects of gaming, stealth. But again, it's really wavy in terms of quality. Like, the amount of times I was hiding behind a crate or something, out of view of the enemy in terms of like what the enemy can and can't see depending on where you are. I would be out of sight, but the enemy would just be like just randomly. I don't know if it had anything to do with the AI of Sully running about in the background constantly, just not really taking much cover. I don't know, there's something that kept giving me away. And then it would just turn into a huge gunfight because there would be too many people, and this is another issue. The AI constantly know where you are. And this is one thing I hate about games in general for the most part. Why do AI always have to know your location no matter what you're doing? I mean, I think you can trick them a little bit, but here and there, but for the most part, if you alert them, everybody knows your exact location and they're shooting directly at you. And this game unfortunately falls into that trap, and I hate that. I hate it, because for the most part I have to restart that entire scenario over and over and over again, and it just gets to the point where I'm bored of that level. But I've got to admit, the gunplay in this game is awesome. The guns themselves have some nice hefty weight to them. Through the visual recoil, it seems to be one-to-one. Like, if you shoot somebody, they get hit. Although the gun mechanics are awesome, the cover mechanics can be a bit wavy here and there depending on what they feel like doing, because sometimes you can jump into cover and be behind the cover you intended to be behind, or sometimes it'll like decide to mess up if you try to like rotate around the cover and it'll jump you out into just open fire. Fun interactions between the characters, like I said, because of the nice chemistry in the writing, but it does eventually begin to feel like the writers are hitting you over the head with the fact that these characters joke about with each other all the time. It's literally like the writers and director are saying to me, look, our characters joke about together. I mean, it's fun and it keeps a light tone to the game, but it does get to a point where it's a bit too much and a bit too repetitive and a bit just in the wrong moment for me over and over again. I don't know, maybe it's a personal thing, but sometimes I was just a bit like, okay, the writers are just doing it for the sake of like, oh look, our characters are light-hearted. Now I sound like I don't want my characters to be fun, when that's not the case at all. The game itself, like I said, is a puzzle solving game here and there, and it has quite a bit of puzzles. They're usually just the big set piece puzzles towards the end of like a level or so, and in my opinion they're all fun and engaging, although very simple at heart. They're not really that challenging, especially when you take into account that Drake, just for some reason that isn't really explained to this extent, he has a notebook which has every single solution for every single puzzle you come through. Like, he'll walk into a room and be like, huh? What are we doing here? This is impressive. Wait a minute, I've seen this before. And then you're like, guess he has it in his notebook then. And then you load up his notebook and he's got the exact detailed drawings and solutions going on, and you're like, okay, well I guess I just follow this step by step. And I think that happens with pretty much all of the puzzles, which is a shame because they are fun in the end. The game also has quite a lot of strong narrative, like as in like the story structure is really good, especially since the game is quite long. Like, I thought the game was gonna wrap up at some point, and then all of a sudden you're introduced to this snowy themed setting with this foreign character. I was just a bit like, look, okay, I guess we're not ending then. But again, it's fun. It's some fun, quirky, like, chemistry between these two lost in translation characters. And I've got to admit, other than the first act, the game has a really strong pace throughout, especially since the game relies on globe-trotting. Like, you'll be in one location, but then in another location in the next level or so. Drake will travel around the world with his friends, chasing after the bad guys, or the bad guys will chase after him, you know. A bit like Indiana Jones or James Bond sort of thing. It helps keep up the variety and pacing of the film. Of the game. What the heck? There's some really cool set pieces all throughout. I think the Uncharted series is really known for its cinematic feel, and that's usually done through like the set pieces, the huge spectacles going on right in front of you or around you or surrounding you. They're great. I think they're all brilliant. Ugh. The one in particular that stands out to me is the train sequence. Not that train sequence, not the opening scene train sequence, but the whole part that actually leads up to that. You start off at the back of the train and you have to work your way up to the front of the carriages. And it's a huge train. It is. Even Drake pointed out halfway through the game. I was like, haha, I get it. I get what the writers are doing there. Self-aware humour. This might be the highlight of the game for me. It just keeps changing. It gets to a point where you have to jump from one carriage to the next and you can't spend enough time in cover because there's a huge helicopter chasing after you that is trying to gun you down with machine guns and rockets that blow up the cart after a certain amount of time. It's so much fun. Yeah, but then you get to the end of the train and, you know, the beginning happens. You know, the beginning of the game that I talked about, the big set piece on the train. That happens right at the end. I was like, okay, so it'll fade out, or it'll just cut to the part after the beginning, because we don't need to do that part again. Oh no, says the game. We're doing that again. And I was like, oh, okay. It was only a few hours ago that I did this, but okay. And you have to repeat the jumping on the train during that set piece from start to end. I don't know, it was impressive the first time, but doing it again, it's just, like, you wouldn't expect to see that in a film, for example. Yeah, some nice character arcs, especially in the bad guy versions of the character arcs. Really cool set pieces, beautiful locations, especially towards the end. Yeah, and the game has a really good ending, I think. There's one last set piece before the end, as you would expect, and it's alright. It glitched up a bit here and there for me, which threw me out at the moment a bit. And the whole game in the end is worth playing. Honestly, I think it's one of the best of its genre. I think it's a great example of how this genre, puzzle-solving action-adventure, can work perfectly, and it's nearly a 10-year-old game. I pretty much loved the game besides the beginning. It took a while to get into it, but I nearly fell in love with it. It's a great game. Anyway, my overall rating for Uncharted 2 Among Thieves is 8.8 out of 10. Back to you, Chris. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you at least kind of enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and subscribe because, you know, why not? It kind of helps out a little bit here and there. I've got a few more of these type of videos and a whole lot of other content that I'm sure you'll love. I'm sure you will. Bye! I don't know.